So welcome, welcome. And we are all remembering Dadi. We're missing her so much. And I remember you were quite close to her. And in fact, Arti bhen, she runs the inner space in Covent Garden, which is a very nice area of London. And how many years now?
25.
25 years. Wow. So, so it's a long time. I tell you that, in fact, her mother met Sakar Baba in 68, Manju bhen. So she went to London. So she started service in a part of London called Ilford. And is it still there? Is it the same house?
It's a different house, a much bigger house, because the family has
It's a
grown.
different house. Okay, bigger.
Yes.
Okay. I remember the story of Yogesh Bai, how his mother got in touch with Dadi Gulzar coming out from Arti's house, Manju bhen's house. So it's very nice. And so we have the fortune to have someone who was close to Dadi to talk to us about Dadi, some inspirations. And at the end, you can also ask questions. But during the program, you can put your questions in the chat box. And at the end, someone will read them out. So I have to see who will read them out to you in English. So thank you very much for your time, your precious time. And I let you to speak now. Om Shanti.
Thank you. A big thank you to Brother Marcelo for actually the invitation to be with all of you in Colombia and throughout Latin America. It's a special, very special gift for me. It's the one part of the world, well, the only other part of the world that I've never ever visited physically. And so this is a dream come true. I can tick the box and say, yes, I've been with the family there. I'm actually currently seated in Dadi's old sitting room in Bava. It's the place that she would meet people. She would be seated on the chair and she would meet people, whether they were VIPs, whether they were guests visiting from abroad, or if they were just family, or the sisters that lived in the Bhavan with her. She would make a point of sitting with them every night unless there was a program that she went away to. And even then, if she came home at 10 o'clock, she would still give time to sit and chat and then have yoga and send everybody to sleep. And so it's a room full of memories for me, definitely. So what can I tell you? I've made some notes, I have to confess, because there's so much for Dadi. And there's been just the question of what are the inspirations that Dadi has given you, that Marcelo by asked me, has got me thinking and coming up with lots and lots of thoughts and memories that I've just cherished over the years. So I thought I would start from my childhood. Dadi came over in 74. By then I was 5 years old, 5 years old. And my Lokik home had been a center. And so for me, going from Ilford to Kilburn wasn't a big deal. It was the same atmosphere, the same give and take of gyan that was occurring, the same yagya system of offering bhog and amrit vela. There was no difference. And so even as a 5-year-old, I was very comfortable in Baba's home just because it was so familiar. And I know that when Dadi came, we were tickled pink. We'd had Ratan Moini Dadi before that, then we had Didi Nirmala. And of course, Gentiben was there consistently from the late 69 period onwards. But here was Dadi, and she was so little. She was so little, and you could relate to her being a little person. We were, my brother and I were very good at sussing out BKs. Growing up in the Yagir, we could easily see how to get what we wanted, and obviously what would any child want would be sweets. Now, There was no such thing as chocolate or ice cream brought from the shops. At that point, early 70s, the Yagir was very, very strict about things like that. And even today, how much do we actually go out and buy chocolate? We don't. Occasionally it comes into Baba's home, but otherwise, no. And here was Daddy, and she would often get left babysitting us. Manjuben, Satish Bhai, my Lokit parents would be off doing service. So what do they do with the two little children? And so we would be left with the seniors to be babysat, so to speak. And it was incredible. You could not upset Daddy in any way. No matter what you did as a child, she would love you. Even if you did something wrong, knowingly doing it wrong, she would just call you and give you loving drishti and then turn you around and send you to clean up the mess that you'd made. She just never raised her voice, and that love was consistent. We'd often go home, and anybody who is from those early days will know Manjuben, and Manjuben is a superb cook without question. And yet we would be the kids that would go home and talk about Daddy's halwa. Daddy would often make halwa for us, and she couldn't reach the top of the cooker, so she had a little box, a plastic box brought in, so she could stand on it, so she could cook. That's how small Daddy was, and she would cook with such love for Baba that when you sat and ate it, you felt that love, and somehow it always tasted 100 times better than anything else you ate. And it was just that love. It was just that continuous love, no matter what you did, and the continuous teachings. When I used to have two little plaits like little girls usually do, and while she would be plaiting your hair, she would help you to remember, who do you belong to? Where is your home? What is the name of your father? And she would remind us again and again and again. And she'd have us repeat it again and again and again, so that if we ever got lost, we could tell somebody that our home was Paramdam, our father's name was Shiv Baba, and that we belonged to the Brahmin clan. And it was something that even for children, she would keep reminding you. And I think over the years, it's been something I've seen her do when I've traveled with her to translate, whether I've run translation events translation for events, or just being on a one-to-one basis where she's been speaking to someone and I'm translating. She's never changed her message. Home, father, and one family. And how special that family is. And now looking back, I realize just how clearly those messages were consistent for her whole service period abroad. I can't talk about before that when she was in India. I wasn't around at that point, so I can't say, but I can say for that period. And her love of being with the family. It didn't matter who they were or whether they were walking in through the door for the first time. Just that deep, deep love for the family that she saw everyone as part of. And what we loved about her is that she was so open-minded. Early 70s, and you have Wesley and Aidan and a number of other brothers, Louis, and they would sing, and Daddy would encourage it, and she wouldn't sit still. She would be so delighted that they were singing something for Baba, and just her sheer joy of watching someone singing about Baba, and she would just, that joy would just flow out. That even the performers would want to perform more. Everybody got carried with that sense of deep joy. I'm just going to pause because I don't know if you can hear that. There's some builders. I'm just going to shut the door. That's a little unexpected. Apologies. So, Daddy's joy. And she was so open-minded that when Daddy was sitting, she didn't necessarily insist on having Hindi music. In fact, I know as a child, there was a certain piece of jazz that she loved, and she would often play it for evening yoga or morning class. She didn't say no to music in any way, and as long as it brought you closer to Baba, she would want to know what it was. And it's something that I've observed through my childhood into my adolescence, where everybody else was saying, no, don't listen to this, don't listen to that. She would pull out pieces of music so that you could listen to something. She always found a way of bridging your interest with Baba's home. And so I think today one of the questions I ask myself is there a way of bridging somebody's interest to Baba? Can I enable someone to come closer to Baba? Interest. We've all come to Baba with such life experiences that we've brought our own speciality, but we've also brought our interests with us to Baba's home. And I guess the question I ask myself again and again in this is, can I make my interests serviceable? Can they be a use to God? There was a time we were traveling through Asia. It was the first time I was traveling through Asia with Daddy. And I think we were away for 7 weeks on a tour. She knew that I had an interest in the populations and cultures of the world and how civilizations have grown and what's caused them to fall apart. She knew that that had been an interest I'd had in my schooling years. And sure enough, we're on the plane. I'm already surrendered now. I'm 22, 23, and 23, and we're traveling. And she's telling me about each country and its culture and the migration of how people migrated from this part of the world to this part of the world. And she wasn't just giving me just general knowledge. She was making it a connection of how the whole world is so interconnected as a family. There are so many more similarities that it's easy to see how we've been through the cycle and connected with all of these souls. So she took a person's interests and made them something serviceable, made them so that it became an asset for the soul to become an instrument for Baba. So it was never that I was meeting somebody from a different place, culture, language, but I was meeting someone who came from where I came from. Isn't that incredible? She somehow turned it around. When I got surrendered, there were a number of things. Now, I'd grown up with Dadi. She knew me already as an individual. She knew more than most people, even more than my parents, perhaps. She's the person you would confide in because you knew she wouldn't get upset. So she was the easiest person to talk to. If you were going away on school trips, like school trips of going to France or to Germany or to Spain, you would come home with a gift for Baba's home, first of all. You would look for a gift for Baba's home, first of all, because that was the place you belonged to. And so, so she knew me rather well already. There wasn't many secrets that I had as an individual that she didn't know about already. And even then, she had asked me for my surrender to write a letter of my life history. And you hear about this in Sakar Mulis, where Baba says, write your life story and send it to Baba. So when I got surrendered in January, she was in Madhuban at that point, and so Gentiben is telling Dadi Arti saying she will surrender, and Dadi saying, well, before she can surrender, she needs to write her life story. And that caught me by surprise because I thought, gosh, what doesn't she know about me? She knows even the size of my underwear, because anything we got as children would come to us via Dadi. And so, gosh, what doesn't she know about me? But it was very interesting to go through that exercise. And after I'd gone through the exercise, she asked me to write a second letter. And the second letter was, what did I really know about myself? And in the exercise of being completely honest, did I see the layers of ego that existed? And did I really feel as if I was born again? I think perhaps that was one of the biggest gifts she gave me after my surrender. At that point of surrender, the idea that the past really was the past, that it wasn't something that I had to build on, but having come to Baba, what was I now creating? And in the video you were watching before, there was a song in it, and a couple of lines in that song were about, we're now creating a new world. And for a new world, it is that new life. And I'm just so aware that Dadi, for many of us, and I don't think it was just for me, I think for many of us in many different ways, Dadi helped us realize that we were starting a new life. And in that new life, the past is the past and it's beautiful. I can't say that there's anything in my childhood that I didn't enjoy. I enjoyed every aspect of my childhood. I was in the Brahmin family with souls who were so amazing and beautiful and kind and warm. Even then, I was starting my life again. We were once traveling somewhere else together, and she was sitting next to me, and out of the blue, she looked at me and she said, "You know, I too suffered from a lack of self-esteem and self-worth. Can you imagine Daddy ever lacking self-esteem or self-worth?" I couldn't get my head around it, and it showed on my face completely, that disbelief. And I also felt was trying to humor me here. And she looked at me and she said, "No, really." And then she said, "You know what Baba taught me? How to overcome this?" And she started this practice for me at that point. See yourself in the reflection of God's eyes. How is it that God sees you? And she said to me, there are many people who will look at your weaknesses and your lacking and point it out to you. But God's vision is far more transformative. And at that point, she was telling me that how they used to tease her for having a tiny body, because when she was younger, she was very skinny. So having a tiny body but a big head. And she said people would say, "What can she do? She's got a tiny body and a big head. What will she do for God? How can she do anything for God? What talent has she got that God needs?" And yet Baba had very clearly said to her, "I see you, I know you. You need to know yourself just in my vision." And again, today, a practice that I've kept all these years. What is it that Baba sees in me? How does Baba see me? And just Baba's love, Baba's trust, Baba's faith has shaped my fortune for me. It's not a practice you just do for a little while and you drop, which you could do, that's possible, but it's a practice that keeps your heart so deeply linked to God that even if a question of self-doubt emerges, just that vision will wipe it away for you for that moment. So another inspiration or gift from Daddy. When I started living with her, I lived with her, then I went abroad. Actually, I was with Moini Ben for a couple of years. And then I came back and I was sent off to another place, and then another place. And it was a good few years on before I was brought back to London. And but during all of those periods, whenever I would be with Daddy, herself, the care she gave her body was almost as if she treated it as a temple. Not her body, but Baba's instrument. And when she would put cream on her feet. It wasn't quick rub in so I can move and go off and do something else. She would do it with that care that this is Baba's instrument. And I think most of us at some point will have seen Dadi wriggling her feet when she found something in Baba's Murli that she loved, a point of gyan that she wanted to share. But it was also the fact that she was wriggling her feet because she was ready to move on with something new, something fresh. But it was because she always felt that her body was an instrument for God and God's purpose. And she never forgot it. She never forgot to put cream on her feet. She was never late not to put cream on her feet or put oil in her hair or to make sure that her sari was accurate. She never forgot she represented Baba abroad. And again, the just that inspiration that we are Baba's instruments, we are his ambassadors abroad. And to be honest, early 70s, Dadi spent a lot of time in the kitchen. Yes, she took morning murli. Yes, she gave class. But there was still so much time that she did karma yoga. And even then, even at that point, she instilled this narrative in the sisters who are around her, in the kids like myself who would appear from day in, day out, that she was God's instrument here. Isn't that incredible? Just to carry that feeling. No wonder there was that self-worth. She'd seen herself in Baba's eyes. She knew the value Baba placed in her, and she carried that through in the expressions of her body too. That level of care and kindness, whether to the body, whether to another soul, or another soul's body, it was just consistent, always there. So, living with her, anchoring her, she really would anchor you in your memories. There was a time a picture of Madhuban had come, somebody had taken a photograph and came and given it to Dadi. And she was looking at it as if she was there with Baba, walking hand in hand with Baba. Those were the memories. And I was watching her face, and she looked at me and she said, "You see, this is where I stood with Baba. This is where Baba gave me drishti. This is where I'm giving you drishti." And so she would anchor our memories in a way that we felt cherished. That moment in time, it was just you and Baba, and there was nothing else in the world. So anchoring your memories, and today I try and do that every day. I try and make a note of a memory that's been created, because the memories that are being created consciously with Baba become memorials in the Copper Age. And so take that time each day for yourself to create that memory and to anchor it for yourself so that you and Baba come closer and closer. There was another thing that she started saying to me, and I'm sure you've heard the daddies talk about it. And she often used the phrases that Baba had used on her, and she would repeat them on me. And she'd sometimes catch me after breakfast, and she'd look me square in the eye and ask me, "Have you eaten breakfast?" Well, I was sitting at the breakfast table and she saw me sitting at the breakfast table. So I'd say, "Yes, Daddy, I have." And she'd say, "But you ate breakfast before you did service? Is that possible? What are you doing?" And she would keep up at it on a regular basis. Until one day I got what she was trying to tell me. And what I started doing was going from Muli class to the breakfast table. I would find someone and share some aspect of Gyan with them that I loved, that tickled me, that caught my fascination and I wanted to explore more, or something I wanted to experience in yoga. And it would be a 2-minute conversation, a 3-minute conversation. But that practice started. And what she was teaching me to do was simply not just having Muli and then leaving Muli in the Muli class, or having yoga and leaving yoga in Baba's room, but to take it something further, to make it a part of my day already from the moment I've heard Muli, I've had yoga. How am I integrating it into my thinking, my activity? How was I making it so real and alive and energizing? And it's something she shared with me. She said, "You've developed this sanskar of using Gyan and yoga to create energy. Not to use it, but to create." And it's something that she put a lot of emphasis on. Am I creating energy? Am I using energy? Am I losing energy? Just check. And so that time and that exercise of finding someone directly after Murli, after yoga, before I would leave Baba's home, just find someone to share something with, so that it becomes your dharna for the day, the thing that you churn through the day, the thing that you experience through the day. So yeah, don't eat breakfast until you've done service. That was another one of her lessons. And there's a whole pile of sayings. There was another one where she would say, "What are you doing? Are you sitting there swatting flies?" And there's a whole story behind that you must know. You must have heard Daddy share those stories when she was in South America with you. So, but I know that I have to get through a lot, and I've just got a few more things I want to say before I stop. So when we traveled, or when she traveled and I was going along with her, the thing that really struck me, there were two things that struck me. One of them was, it didn't matter who she spoke to, who she was with. It was the same message. And because there was a sense of absolute vision that this soul is capable of taking their inheritance from God, she could issue a challenge. And there was one time we were in the Philippines and they'd organized 500 engineers who just were about to qualify, and Daddy had been asked to come on and speak at their ceremony where they were getting their their award for passing their examinations and their congratulations. So she was asked to go and speak to young men, and it was all young men. And she got up there and she gave them such drishti that you couldn't hear a pin drop in the room. And then she told them very simply that if they were going to be engineers, if they were going to be creators, if they were going to do anything worthy of world service or world vision, they have to practice celibacy. And she spoke 20 minutes on celibacy. And it completely threw me because I thought, what is she doing? And yet, I, being the translator, had no say. I just have to translate, right? I don't have a say what she's saying is right or wrong or try and manage what she's saying. That's not my job. As a translator, my job is to just get the message across. That's it. And she spoke for 20 minutes on celibacy and the clarity of vision and the power of concentration and the power of the mind. And that comes when you practice celibacy. And when she finished, she told them, let's have a minute of silence and just see for yourself how you feel. And it was incredible because after that minute of silence, they literally stood up in one go as one body and cheered her. It was quite an experience for me. And so it didn't matter who she was with. She never compromised her message. I told you about her teaching me as a child, who do I belong to? Where is my home? Who is my family? What is my father's name? And it didn't matter who she met. She would give that same love, attention, and delight, absolute delight. You know, you have that memory of how her eyebrows would shoot up and her eyes would open wide. She did that with everybody. Brahmin, not Brahmin, presidents, or Aboriginals. I've seen her talk to such a cross-section of people, and there isn't a change, not even 1% change. And it's based on that vision of this one is Baba's child and will do Baba's task. And I guess recently in lockdown, I've become aware of that I'm not meeting people face to face any longer. It's all through Zoom, and often you don't even see the people at the other end of the conversation. And yet, everyone I'm meeting, I'm just remembering the souls at the other end of this are Baba's children. And they are also Baba's instruments in one way or another. And just keeping that memory. And I think that I felt such a connection with souls over Zoom that I may not have experienced before as often. So, another practice. I'm going to stop talking about all of those things. I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I saw her do when she was at Inner Space. And I think the first time when we first started Inner Space, it was at Regent Street in the West End of London. And every night when I first came home, and it went on for 3 or 4 months, every night without fail, she would ask me, what miracle occurred today? Now, 1996, if you use the word meditation in central London, the shutters would come down. People didn't want to know or hear about meditation. And so how do we talk? How do we share with each other? Or how do we give Baba's Gyan? And how do we connect with souls when they don't want to? And we have this amazing place. I mean, it was huge. You could seat 70, 80 people and there was still ample space. So big. And if you got 3 people through the door, it was a miracle. And often it was somebody walking in for directions to another place. And so how did you drum up interest? And I'd come home and Daddy would look at me and say, what miracle happened today? And how do you tell Daddy every day that we had one person walk through the door? Baba is spending all this money on this venue and only one person walks in through the door. I remember it was, I think it was about 5 months in, 6 months in, when we got our first, for the first time we had 20 people walk through the door. And I remember us celebrating like anything that, gosh, finally 20 people have walked through the door. Now on Zoom, it's hundreds of people that you're meeting and you're serving, and I'm sure that that's the case. But back in 1996, it was another story. And I got to a point where I didn't want to come home because I knew I would have to face Daddy, and Daddy would ask me the same question. What miracle happened today? And I went to Gingerbread one night and said, I don't want to go home anymore. And she looked really shocked and said, what's wrong? What's happened? I said, Daddy's going to ask me what miracle happened. And I don't have an answer. I really don't have an answer. We barely get 2 people through the door. And then Gentleman said to me, okay, here, take Toli, now go home. And that was the end of that. So I had no support from her on that one. But it took that long for me to understand that I had to invoke the service that was needed to be done. That was my job. We had great teachers on the team. We had great artists and designers on the team. We had great administrators and coordinators on this team. There was 25 people on the team. But what was my job? My job was to invoke the service, to invoke the miracle. And also, the other side of it, if I wanted to sustain the service God wanted done, I'd have to see each thing as a miracle. I had to learn to see miracles. And lockdown, no inner space, but prior to lockdown, one of the things I loved about serving at inner space was people would come in completely clueless, thinking they'd walked into a little boutique shop, and you'd invite them to go to Baba's room. And they'd go down, not knowing why they were going down. They just agreed. It was always very unusual. People just agreed to do something for you. This is London, not Latin America or a southern country where people are warm and open to the concept of God. Normally people will ask you 10 questions if you ask them to do something. And here am I, each day inviting people to go to the quiet room, and they'd go for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and they'd come upstairs and they'd look 10 years younger. And people, their friends would comment on it. What were you doing down there? You look so different. And so today, my Brahmin life is really incredibly special because there are miracles happening around me and I get to see God at work. And so when people ask, why are you still doing service after all these years? Why are you still doing the same thing? Well, that's why. I love seeing the miracle of God at work every day. And I think I need to stop at this point. Is that right, Marcelo? Bye.
Shanti, Arti, bhen was beautiful. I mean, I was traveling around when you were talking. I was feeling like it was great. It was great. Thank you. Thanks so much. We don't have questions here, but one sister is asking, how do you invoke souls for service? How do you get souls for doing service?
How do I get souls to cooperate to do service?
Yeah,
Question?
the question is, how do we invoke the souls for service? But I guess it's, how do you get souls for doing service?
How do I get?
You are there in Covent Garden, the family is a few miles away. So how do you get convincing them to come there and do service there? Or
Okay, well, I actually don't have to do much. One of the things that Baba has said is that the service, I was told about Baba's museum in London when I was 7 years old. Okay, and it was the first time I was in a sari. I was meeting Avya Bab Dada in the meditation hall. And Didi Manmoini had put me in a sari, and as I was meeting Baba, and you can imagine how cute that is. And Baba then sits me in his lap and asks me, will you look after Baba's museum? I was 7. Not even, I was going to be 7, okay? I was going to be 7 in a few days, so almost 7. And at that point, Baba had said, Baba will find the hands to get the task done. Baba will handpick the souls for the task. So that's the only awareness that I've maintained. If the task needs doing, Baba will find the right hands. It's not my job, it's his job. And when I was 7, I just thought, oh, granddad, because he felt like my granddad, is he doesn't know, there's no chance there'll ever be a museum in London. No chance at all. So I'll just say yes. But if there is by chance, how are we going to do it? Where are the people going to come from? And he answered that question. So for me, any service anywhere that's the rule. Um, it's his task. He'll get it done. I just have to be present. And it's one of the bits of advice Daddy has given me. Even when my health wasn't that great and I couldn't be at inner space for long, she would say to me, just go and sit. Your job is to be present. The service will happen around you. And that's the gift. I guess just turning up and just being present, that maintaining God's honor on that level. I can do that much, right? So yeah.
I think it's okay, the question, and the answer is great. And so Baba foreseen, no, he has foreseen that one day you'll be in inner space, because that's the idea of the inner space, to be
Yeah,
the Western version of a museum.
yeah, a Western version of the museum. So yeah, it's it wasn't till after I was at inner space I remembered that blessing and that particular meeting. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. Um, I think we are approaching the end, so you could conduct some dristi to everyone, so you can. I don't know if you can write in the chat which countries are there. I see one sister from Argentina. I see. So we know which, besides, well, Colombia, Argentina. So besides these places, there are other countries. So
Wow.
you didn't travel here, no, to South America.
I have never been to South America at all.
So certainly you can travel. You can fly. We have Flavian from the Caribbean.
Oh,
Uh,
Shanti, hello.
so we have many souls there. Chile is there. Dominican Republic in the Caribbean too. Mexico is present. So
Wow.
you have traveled to many countries just in 1 hour.
Very good. Finally, I can tick it off my bucket list, so to speak. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Oh, even United States, Texas, Bolivia is there, Peru is there, New York is also there.
My goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So it's very beautiful. Thank you. Thanks so much. Oh, Iris from Peace Village is there. So you have a pretty good number of souls around there. Thank you very much for your wonderful class. I mean, we are all thinking about Daddy. Oh, we are all feeling, oh, I should be there in Mount Abu, and I'm here. So it's nice to have someone to share more than memories. No, I think what you are doing is helping us to develop the sanskars that Dadi Janki helped you to develop too, in a way. You know, it's a chance. It's a beautiful chance.
I
When
hope
we
it's
hear,
useful. Yeah.
yeah, when we hear others' experiences, we also, our sanskars also wake up the divine sanskars that are there. So thank you so much. So if you can conduct some dristi with music, and then everybody will turn on their cameras and mics, and they will take leave from you. But let's have meditation first.
Thank you.
याद रखेंगे हम तेरे दिव्य कहानी दादी जी याद रखेंगे हम तेरे दिव्य कहानी मुरलीधर और मुरली की तुम थे खूब दीवानी मुरलीधर और मुरली की तुम थे खूब दीवानी याद रखेंगे हम तेरी दिव्य कहानी दादी जी याद रखेंगे हम तेरी दिव्य कहानी कर जब बाबा ने तुम्हें पुकारा, पल भर में तुमने वैसा ही अपना स्वरूप धारा। पालन करती रही सदा तुम बाबा की समझाने। दादी जी हम याद रखेंगे तेरी दिव्य कहानी, याद रखेंगे हम तेरी दिव्य कहानी। दादी जी याद रखेंगे हम तेरी दिव्य कहानी।